All right, good morning or good afternoon, Year 8. I'll be talking you through your clocks revision. The first thing I want you to do is to make sure that you've got your booklet in front of you and you've got either a pen or a pencil in your hand. If you don't have a booklet, just raise your hand now for your teacher to go and get a spare booklet. There are plenty of spares in the department, but you'll obviously need something to write on for this lesson. Now we're actually going to skip over the first mini project, which was the strip Peter project. Not everybody did this, so that would be unfair to include in the test, so we're just going to simply leave it out altogether. So the first page that we're going to be looking at is the design research page. Now, whenever we start a new project, this is something that's always really crucial to start looking at existing ideas that are already out there. And we've tried to focus those ideas for a little bit easier for you by picking 4 designers or artists for you to have a look at. Now, the idea behind doing this exercise was to primarily look at their actual designs that they've done already, and understand what they're famous for, essentially. So each one has a very specific style or a very specific sort of color scheme that they work with, and that hopefully you were able to identify in your prep that you produced on this page. Now, other crucial bits of information that you were asked to look at were also background information about your chosen designer or artist. This will hopefully, or should have hopefully, helped you understand a little bit more about them, understand their thinking a little bit more, and to appreciate how they actually generate their ideas. They might have had certain experiences or influences in their life that have resulted in a certain pattern that they sort of repeat all the time, or colours that they use on a frequent basis, or maybe just the kind of whole style of their work is influenced by a certain experience or occasion or something like that. So really unpicking what they're famous for, the thinking behind their idea, and the idea then is for you to use this information to then filter stuff into your own ideas. So it might be picking out small little themes that has perhaps inspired you, or it might be a particular way that they set out their work, or just the fact that they use geometric shapes. Maybe you use geometric shapes, but you just simply adapt them in a slightly different way in your designs. So you are using your chosen artist or designer as a source of inspiration to then influence your ideas, not to copy, but to influence and inspire. Hopefully that makes sense for that bit. Let's move on to the next slide. Pause this as and when you need to, by the way, to make some notes. So we then moved on to the initial ideas side of things, which was a chance for you to come up with 4 of your own ideas, but importantly, you were to use the inspiration from your prep page, your designer research, to influence your designs in some way. So like I spoke about before, it might be picking out certain themes that your chosen artist used quite commonly, or it might be mimicking similar color themes. So things like that that then work their way into your own ideas. So it's basically using the existing material that you've sourced, but then putting your own spin on things. So we asked you to come up with 4 very different ideas, to annotate them, to make sure that they're neat and accurate pencil drawings, and if time, we asked you to colour them in. Now, your annotations are quite an important part of designing. Now, when you annotate something, you're essentially just making notes on what you have put down on paper. So materials is a really nice one to start off with. So the majority of you probably used acrylic as your material, but I know that some of you also used plywood, so laser ply. So that might be a nice thing to distinguish there in your annotations. Dimensions as well, pretty useful to include here. Now, we all gave you a size limit with your clocks, which were 120 by 120, whether that's a circle or a square, rectangle, triangle. It had to fit within those parameters. But you may well have slightly extended or slightly gone under that measurement, and that would be important to include there. If you didn't get time to colour in your drawings, then noting down what colours you are going to put and where on your designs is really important to do as well. And any other crucial bits of information. So something that I like to see when I mark this page is to see where that actual inspiration came from. So you might have a pattern on there that was very typical of one of the artists, so Beezer Butler, for example, and that would be something that you could incorporate here, just saying where those ideas actually came from in the first place. Your final design page is obviously a chance for you to record your chosen idea. So in that big box on the left, we wanted to see a beautiful 2D drawing of your finished product. So what it would look like when it's eventually printed out. Now, the little three supplementary boxes on the right hand side, the base and the detail layers, this is where you had to be a little bit more thoughtful in terms of actually breaking your work down into the individual sort of component pieces. So your base layer should be just a simple line drawing of the outside shape of your product. So for some of you, this might just be as simple as a circle. Some of you it might be a square, or some of you might have a slightly stranger shape. We can look at the bottom one, for example, where you've got the sort of outline of the mushroom drawn. And then your detail layers on top are the kind of the jigsaw puzzle pieces, which actually then sit on top of that base layer and have created your beautiful designs. So actually mapping those out takes a little bit of thought and care, but hopefully that then equipped you with the knowledge that you needed to then transfer your idea onto CAD, I should say. Now on this page as well, hopefully this was a chance for you to refine your ideas a little bit more. So you've obviously produced your 4 initial ideas. You may well have started on this page and thought, actually, I need to just amend my initial ideas, and that was a chance for you to do that on here. Crucially though, we were still looking for that clear influence from your design research. So again, continuing with those themes that you've picked out, or colour schemes, or whatever it might be. We're looking for those annotations again on this page, so noting down the materials, the dimensions, what each part is. It will help you get your ideas in check, as well as your teacher being able to understand what your idea actually is as well. When you're drawing a final design page, we really do like you to make it as neat as possible. So using rulers where appropriate, nice sharp pencils, and compasses if you need to even, and coloured in pencil, not in pen. So once you'd finished your final design, you then all started to transfer your ideas onto the computer using 2D design. For this test, you'll be pleased to know that there is no CAD element that is assessed. So we'll skip over this slide. So the next piece of work that you would have done is actually a prep task, your product analysis. I asked my groups to do a primary piece of research where they actually went out to find a physical clock to go and look at. Some of you may well have found an internet image, which would have fallen into the category of a secondary product analysis. Either way, both are valid, and we got you to analyse your clock against several different headings to help focus your analysis a little bit more so. So we've got consumer, aesthetics, cost, quality, safety, function, sustainability and materials. Now we get our GCSE students to conduct a product analysis against those same topics, and it's a crucial bit of work to help you understand in more detail what is working for existing products and what maybe you can better. So I've just taken this clock off the wall from the classroom that I'm sat in. It's a clock like we've got in many of the classrooms around school, and if I was to look at the kind of the overall style of it, there's nothing sort of fancy about it. So if we take the first topic, for example, the consumer, who is it designed for and why do you think that? It's quite simple. It's made of plastic. It's just using the colours black and white. We've got that red second hand on there, so there's nothing fancy about it at all. And the fact that it has been made out of plastic as well means that it's probably quite cheap to produce. So in terms of the consumer, I'm trying to piece together all these little bits of information. So it's possibly going to be designed for an office of some sort, I would probably imagine, or a school environment. Why do I think that? Because it's nice and simple, it's clear, it's easy to read, it's got quite big numbers on there, meaning that if it is on the wall, you can see the time really easily, and there are no sort of distractions, there's no kind of fancy colours or anything like that. So something that is quite simplistic, and probably, if you then to narrow it down even further for an age range, if you think about it in terms of a school environment, maybe we could say anywhere sort of between the ages of 11 to 18, but really then teachers look at it as well, so maybe we could push that up to kind of 40, 50, 60 even. So we've got quite a large age range there. Some of you might have chosen a completely different clock, and you'll be able to instantly identify that maybe it's a clock for children because it might have lots of bright colours. It might almost be interactive in some way, or it might be there to help younger children to learn the time. So you can really unpick lots and lots of bits of information by doing a product analysis. And when you're doing this, it's super important that you're looking at the positives as well as the negatives, but really trying to unpick why a designer has done something in a certain way. So then your teacher would have led you through a laser cutting demonstration, and this page was a chance for you to note down those steps of how to laser cut, and the different speed settings and power settings. Now, we've got lots of different laser cutters in the department, and each laser cutter will have slightly different settings. And you will have also hopefully learned that the colour black we typically use to cut out material, whereas red we would use to etch or engrave into the surface of the material. Now, I'm not going to talk you through these steps, but what I will do in this revision resource is I'll link you to one of our DC-DT YouTube videos, which talks you through the laser cutting process. So you can watch that video after this revision tutorial. So there's a lot of information to try and get through on the CAD CAM page, so please do pause the video if you need to. So CAD stands for Computer Aided Design. CAM stands for Computer Aided Manufacture. So if we just have a think about what those words actually mean, Computer Aided Design. So the computers are helping us to design. So an example of a program, if we phrase it like that, hopefully it's easy for you guys to understand, would be something like TechSoft, or as it was previously known, 2D Design. You've also probably encountered Autodesk Inventor Professional in the DT department. That would also be another suitable option. But on a really simplistic level, it could be something like Paint. It's a program that helps you design or helps you draw on the computers. Now, an example of CAM, so Computer Aided Manufacture, so where the computers are helping us to actually make something for your project, you use the laser cutters. But we've also got the 3D printers in the department. We've also got some more advanced bits of kit that are pieces of computer aided manufacture equipment as well. So we've got a router. You can also have things like CNC milling machines, CNC lathes. There are many different options out there, but the laser cutters and 3D printers should be the ones that you are focusing on for this particular year group anyway. Now, moving on to the advantages of using CAD and justify your answers, meaning that to explain yourselves there. You can produce ideas really quickly. Now, obviously, you're working digitally, so that means that you have the capability to make a bit of progress on your work, to save your work and then return to it at a later date. You can make edits really easily as well. Just all the time, think about what the alternative was. If you weren't doing this work on the computers, you'd be doing it by hand. So obviously, if you're using the computers here, you are saving yourself the need to have to physically draw out your ideas. Or if you've drawn out your idea beautifully and then you make a mistake, it's really difficult to then actually rectify that mistake. But the computers have the facility to do that really easily for us. CAD also allows prototypes to be tested on screen without actually having to physically go away and make the product in order to test it. So you can produce things like stress tests on cars, for example, when they are designed all on screen, and that saves an awful lot of money and also resources. CAD files can also be sent across the world. So, for example, we could design something here in the UK, send it over to somebody in Japan to get some feedback, and then they could then send their ideas or their edits back to us to then work to rectify those ideas. So it's easy to share ideas globally. Now, something that I know is really useful, and you guys like to make use of on CAD, is obviously the copy and paste function. It's so easy to select just a part of your design and then repeat that any number of times in a matter of seconds. And it also allows you to change and edit appearances really easily as well by using things like the paint bucket tool to flood an area with a certain color. Now, if we think about some advantages of CAM, it's really quick to actually produce products, physical products, if we then compare that to the time it would take you to make things by hand. Another beauty of CAM would be the fact that once you've got your CAD file perfected, CAM is then able to simply reproduce that product over and over and over again. So it's perfect for where repetition is needed. But also, as we're talking about these things, and I suggest you do this as part of your own revision, is to list down some of the disadvantages of CAD and the disadvantages of CAM as well. So have a think about what we've discussed already, and then see if you can sort of reverse them to find the disadvantages. So we're going to move on to the next page. So use the time now just to fill in any gaps that you have on this page. There's one page after this called testing and evaluating. You don't need to worry about that in terms of your revision, so you can leave that one blank if you haven't already completed it. But what I would like you to do now is to refer to Teams, and I will send you the laser cutting video, and also I'm going to set you an extra task as well for you to work through for the remainder of the lesson.